Previously, Nate and I made a video where we talked a bit about Assassin's Creed 3's Frontier, the freedom of it, and just everything around the idea, because this was an area that promoted player exploration and discovery in AC3 due to really its untamed and unsettled nature. But today, Jill and I wanted to actually move on and talk about a sequel to that game, Assassin's Creed 4, and how it actually built on those ideas with the world building of this game. AC4 is a ton of fun, and there's so much in the West Indies for players to find and do, and all these things really build off the ideas of AC3. So before we go any further, if you do enjoy today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and consider hitting that notification bell and turning on all notifications so you can actually see when we upload on this channel. YouTube has become a lot more algorithm based, so if you enjoy a video, say on Spider-Man, and you like this channel, it won't show you anything except Spider-Man unless you do that. So definitely worth doing if you want to help support the channel or see the videos we upload. Jill also has her own channel, Magical Jill, which I'm on as well, and recently we actually made a video talking about how video games changed our lives, so that's over on her channel if you're interested.
I also do a lot of awesome stuff on there, like reviews of collectibles that I get, and sometimes I do top 5s on things like Pokemon and stuff, and I'm really excited about it, so I hope you guys all check it out.
Now, getting back into it, even though Assassin's Creed 4 still has a linear story, and what I mean by that is you still go throughout the game following a story if you are progressing the main story path, the game actually lets you approach that story in a lot of different ways from how the world is built. So just as a small example, you might remember trees and climbing trees from Assassin's Creed 3. This is actually really well integrated into Assassin's Creed 4. It's a feature I wish would come back more, because there's a lot of places you go to in the world with trees. There's not a lot of tree climbing anymore in Assassin's Creed, which kind of bums me out. But I think that they're really well integrated into the town, sometimes in between buildings, because you have to remember that people are building these towns and settlements up around untamed nature. So this isn't like today where you'd have, I don't know what they're called, but like a forest clearing crew come through and wipe out, 100 acres of forest and make it a flatland, and then you develop houses. This is like, hey, Bob, there's a tree right there, and there's 5 more there. You're gonna have to cut down these 2, and look, you can build a house out of that and build it here, but there's no point to cut down the other 3. That's a lot of work, and you're gonna get hurt, and there's no purpose to doing that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as organized at the time. So because of that, there's all these trees and different vertical obstacles kind of still left up. And a lot of these cities and areas are still under construction too, allowing a lot of room for free running and player exploration in the game, which I think is really cool because this does take place before Assassin's Creed 3 in the West Indies, so significantly south of the setting of AC3. But that does a lot to actually expand the world too.
I actually wish in real life that they did leave up more trees and stuff, because I think that's pretty fun. Part of the exploring that I really, really enjoy is the fact that you have an entire open ocean ahead of you. Since you're a pirate, you have a pirate ship, obviously. It's your jackdaw that he names after his bird, which is really cute. Something that I really enjoy is, in order to get to all the different places, it's kind of like the kingdom or the frontier or like the mountains if in all the other Assassin's Creed games, where you have to go through the ocean to get to the other places in the game and to get to the main missions. And I think that's really awesome. It is very fun. There is so much to do. So you can do ship battles and stuff, and when you get a bunch of money, you can upgrade your jackdaw over time, and certain plans are locked behind doing some things like diving, which we'll get into, which I think is really fun.
Yeah, the ship mechanics are done very well. I feel like we could almost make a whole video just on the ship itself.
Yeah.
Actually, at some point, because that was a huge, I would say, step up from AC3. I liked it in AC3. A lot of people weren't a big fan of it, but I think that in AC3, they introduced the idea of the ship battles and the ship sailing with the Aquila, and I think enough people and enough of the development team liked it that actually directly led into this. That's something we talk about a little bit in a previous video, is that a lot of people hate on AC3, but without AC3, AC4 either would not exist or would not be nearly as fleshed out.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the sailing stuff. One of my favorite activities to do on the open ocean is actually harpooning and whaling. Mm-hmm. Even though it's very sad and I don't like killing animals, it's very, very fun to see them sing the little song about Patty Doyle's boots, and then Edward gets on the whaling boat and he has a bunch of harpoons, and then you have to stab the whale. I mean, it sounds really barbaric, but that's how it was back then. It was barbaric, and it wasn't necessarily a good thing, but they didn't know that, and it's really fun and interesting. And you get these pelts from, like, the whales and, like, other hunting of animals and stuff to be able to craft more things.
Yeah, I want to talk
really
about
like
the hunting.
that.
I want to talk about the hunting. Don't step on my toes here, because this is one of my favorite things, and it's something that I wish would be used a little bit more in Assassin's Creed, but I really liked how it was done here, because although I am also a big teddy bear who does not like ever seeing animals hurt in real life, I think hunting in video games is really fun. It was one of my favorite things introduced in Assassin's Creed 3, and it really fit there because you were a Native American assassin. I mean, this was their way of life, you know? So kind of back then, hunting was very different. And when you're playing as Connor in AC3, there's a lot of different methods for hunting with lures and other things like that. I will say that when it comes to Assassin's Creed 4, hunting was simplified. I do miss a little bit of the sort of baiting and tracking animals that was from Assassin's Creed 3, because you used to be able to lay down traps and lay bait there and catch rabbits and stuff. But it's also worth mentioning you're dealing with an entirely different setting and an entirely different set of animals.
And an entirely different person.
Yeah.
Because Edward doesn't have as much honor around killing things as Connor did.
He also doesn't have as much experience in terms of, like, hunting. It was not his way of life to go hunting.
Yeah, he just kind of straight up shoots things, to be honest. And, I mean, the biggest reason he does that is, too, because he needs resources to make things, too. Right,
so the hunting fits in a different way. And what I'm saying is, like, not that AC3's hunting was better, but I really like a couple of the mechanics that didn't make it into this game. I also understand why they didn't, because also Edward's not going to lay down a trap and then come back to some uncharted island 2 weeks later, you know, or a day later.
Yeah.
You know, with the Frontier, you're sort of in a same X amount of square mile radius all the time that you can come back to. So it makes sense why Connor does things differently, even for a practicality standpoint.
But Edward's busy pirating, and it takes like a month to get to a lot of these places.
Yeah, well, you'll talk to Blackbeard, and he'll be like, meet me at Nassau in a month. You know, and you don't see that in the game, but that's what it is in would have been in real life. It's not fast.
Yeah, it was a very slow way of travel, but it was the only thing they had.
And very fast compared to swimming.
That's true.
Well, I guess swimming would end quicker because you'd get tired and get eaten, but
yes.
I do think it's interesting, though, because the hunting, it really does add to the world, you know, and I understand why it didn't happen in Assassin's Creed 2 or Assassin's Creed 1. I mean, you know, Altair or Ezio not taking time to leave the city limits to go hunting for animals. That makes sense because it's a very established area. But something with AC3 and 4 is they are very untamed areas.
Yeah.
You know, even the areas that are charted and being developed, they're very much untamed compared to the world we see today, so it makes sense that you would need these resources.
Yeah. Something else that I really enjoy about the open ocean in this game is the diving. It is so fun. So you will sail around, and one of the biggest things that helps unlock some of these diving locations is taking out the forts, and we will talk a little bit more about that. But when you do get to the diving locations and you have to buy a diving bell, then you can have it sink down to the bottom of the ocean with Edward in it. And I don't really know how they get air to stay in it, but you're able to breathe in the diving bell, and then you come out and you swim around and you find all the chests and the animus pieces and stuff, and you have to avoid being eaten by sharks and having eels hurt you and having jellyfish hurt you.
You're not very good at avoiding the eels, I'm going to be honest, Jilly. The eels are your downfall.
There's a lot of things in the ocean that try to hurt you. And listen, the eels look like seaweed, okay? I'm not good at differentiating seaweed and eels, okay?
Well, in your defense, sharks wouldn't really just attack you anyway. That's really a misconception. They don't just attack people very often.
No, they don't really. They don't really want to, because you don't taste good to them.
So the game is already playing by unfair rules.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of liberties I think that they take in a lot of the Assassin's Creed games. But I still really enjoy the diving a lot, because you get to go into these shipwrecks that nobody's ever really been in before because they sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and you swim around in them, and your crew puts barrels down on the bottom of the ocean for you to be able to breathe. Again, I don't know how they don't fill up with water, but somehow they have air in them, and you can breathe from the barrels.
I'm not sure if there's an actual historical item like that, you know?
I don't know.
Or if it's just them taking liberties, like how Sonic can breathe in an air bubble when he goes underground.
Yeah.
Or underwater.
Yeah, or like Lara Croft has like a lot of air bubbles she can breathe in.
Yeah, who knows? But I thought it was really fun because, you know, you kind of pointed out that it really does tie into the exploration of the game. Like, these places, like you just said, no one's ever been there, really.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a pirate would do, is, like, do diving and try to find treasure deep in the ocean and stuff. And I kind of wish that they would have brought some of these small mini-games, like whaling and diving, into some of the other Assassin's Creed games, because I actually think things like Valhalla could have really benefited from that.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like we mentioned before in a video on your channel with Pokemon. A lot of times Assassin's Creed will come up with these good ideas and they will have good sort of mechanics that they create, but they never build on it where they all keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so things like the hook blade.
Mm-hmm.
You get the hook blade and then it goes away.
Yeah.
You know, or the grappling hook in Syndicate. You get the grappling hook thing and then it goes away. Or the whaling, like harpooning, you get it and it eventually goes away. And it's kind of too bad because games like Freedom Cry, even though it's a smaller DLC game, and Rogue, they built on a lot of these ideas and they were like, hey, let's do more of that. But then eventually they're kind of like, let's move away from that.
I think we could actually make a whole entire video about talking about
Probably.
that. Because I think it would be really interesting to talk about. But I really, really enjoy this game for what it is, with all of the mini games that it has in it. I think it's really, really fun. And you wanted to talk a little bit about Kenway's Fleet, actually, which is another cool mini game that they have.
I did a little bit. I don't want to complain about Kenway's Fleet, but I will say that this is sort of this game's answer to the Assassin's Brotherhood. Mm-hmm. So when you are playing Revelations and Brotherhood, you are controlling a Brotherhood of Assassins under you. Mm-hmm. You're recruiting people and controlling them. And I really liked that because you could call them in to fight with you on the land, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome.
Also, in AC3, there's a similar mechanic. I think it's not as good as in Brotherhood and Revelations because now you're using named people and they only have so much utility and purpose. But anyways, I thought that, you know, that was a really cool feature back in the day with raising up your Brotherhood. Again, a feature that should come back to the series. Mm-hmm. And it did sort of come back with Kenway's Fleet, but it's very different because in this, you are capturing ships similar to how you recruit assassins. Then you actually get other pirates and other people to captain those ships for you and go on simulated missions. Now, a big problem I have with Kenway's Fleet is that it's kind of designed to be almost a co-op thing, and that annoys me a little bit because basically there's an online component to it where they wanted you to do these missions with other people. We just play these games basically by ourselves, unless we're playing the multiplayer. So that makes these missions take like 30 hours sometimes, which sucks.
And that sucks because it's the best way in the game, in my opinion, to get a lot of money pretty quickly, because you need a lot of money to upgrade things in this game. And it's very hard to just grind the money from taking out ships only.
Or just grind the money from finding treasure chests where you're only getting about 200 reals a piece.
Yeah.
So I thought that the Kenway's Fleet, though, was really well done in general, other than that. And I'm sure that at the time the game launched, it having a co-op component was not a problem. The problem is now the game is, you know, a decade old.
Yeah.
So obviously at that point, it's like, who's going to play it with you? But I really like how you capture these ships and they have different levels and different, I would say, stats. So there are different types, like there's schooners, there's frigates, there's gunboats. I don't really see a point in keeping any of those around unless you really want them to go faster and do missions faster. What I really try to get are the man of wars. Those things are really big, and eventually you can actually go up, like you said, against legendary ships as well.
Which is very exciting, yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going into the Kenway's Fleet there, where it's trading resources, and essentially it's the simulated assassins missions from the previous games, but they're pirate missions instead.
Yeah, the way you get the legendary ships to spawn is by taking out the forts around the map. So when you're sailing around the open ocean, it's kind of like instead of doing viewpoints to open up the map, you take out these forts and it opens up the map and all of the things you can do, and I think that's really, really fun.
It is really fun because it's, you know, they still have the viewpoints too. That's something I like, is if they had replaced the viewpoints with the forts, I think it would have been kind of sad, because I genuinely think there's a few things every Assassin's Creed game needs, and viewpoints are one of them.
But it would be kind of hard to just put viewpoints on the open ocean.
Right, exactly. Like, that's not something you can really do, unless they're going to make you stop your ship every 20 minutes to climb it and look around, and then draw a map. That's kind of stupid.
That would be a little stupid.
It works really well that you're taking out these forts, and you go in, you take out the officers and the commander, and then that fort is yours. And then it's somewhere you can fast travel to get around the ocean faster. It's somewhere you can get your ship repaired. It's somewhere you can lower your notoriety so your wanted level goes down.
And get naval missions.
Yes, and get naval missions, which is another thing to do that I think you could talk about real briefly.
It is very fun. There's this guy named Milo Vandergraaf, and he always says that he's an honest businessman and a friend.
He is.
But he's always asking you to do some nefarious activities, and if you do all of the missions, you get a golden flintlock. Something I actually do really like, though, about Kenway's Fleet, I just wanted to mention real quick, is the fact that throughout most of this game, even though Edward is trying to be an assassin, he's not really on great terms with the rest of the Brotherhood, so I don't think it would necessarily make sense for him to be recruiting a bunch of people into the Brotherhood.
Right.
But it makes sense for him as a captain of a pirate ship to be recruiting more pirates.
Kind of like with the hunting, they've made the mechanics that they introduce in the game or change in the game fit Edward. They're not really forced to fit him, they're just changed to more naturally fit who he is.
Yeah.
So one thing I love about the exploration in Assassin's Creed 4 as kind of a closing thought as well is basically that it ties into exploration of who Edward Kenway, the playable character, actually is. Because as you're going around in something like Assassin's Creed 2, Ezio is figuring out who he is over time. That's one of the reasons why the story is so memorable. And it's really arguable that you're not an official assassin until later in the game in AC2, but you're living the life of an assassin and doing assassin things the entire time. By everything other than title, you are an assassin.
Yes.
In Assassin's Creed 4, it's fairly the same way, except you're a guy wearing an assassin's costume, trying to figure out what that actually means. And I think it's kind of interesting because you start out as a very self-serving asshole in a lot of ways, who has a reason for being that way. And over time, as you come across these other missions, like working with the Brotherhood by exploring islands and exploring towns and meeting members of the Brotherhood that you accidentally wronged previously on your journey, which ties into the story, you kind of learn a little bit more about what it means to be an assassin and why that uniform actually matters to people. The untamed world and kind of finding these places over time and discovering what they are also tied in really well to discovering who the character you're playing as is over time, who changes by the end of the game.
Yeah, I really like that he learns how to be a good person just because of the kindness of his heart, too, because at first he doesn't want to help anybody unless he gets paid. Yeah. But then later on he starts to help people because he likes helping people. And that makes me really happy, and that's something that I really enjoy about this game. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. We currently have our neighbors mowing right now, so if you hear that in the background, that's kind of what's going on. So we want to finish this up and tell you, please subscribe and please like this video because it means a lot to us. Leave in the comments some things that you would love to see in more Assassin's Creed games, like with the mini games, or what you liked about the open ocean of Black Flag, because I really love this game. It's one of my favorites in the entire series. And if you really want to see some more of me and Jay here talking about other things like with video games that we like Pokemon, and eventually we're going to do things like Animal Crossing and stuff like that, then head over to my channel, which is Magical Jill, which I do a lot of awesome stuff there. And I have a really awesome shop called Enchanted Glamour. It's enchantedglamour.com, so enchantedglamor.com, where I sell some really awesome stuff like resin pieces and really cool jewelry. So definitely check that out if you want to support these channels, because it really helps us keep the lights on here. Please make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay shway!